Hey everybody, it's Magic Prepper. And I wanted to touch base with you on a couple tidbits of information that I find relevant right now because I feel like the West is being punished based on recent decisions that we've made here, and not necessarily by the East, but by factions within the West that wanted to see this authoritarian machine progress forward, and now that's been disrupted and they're on a limited timeline to instigate as much suffering as possible. And that's what I'm witnessing, and that's why I'm sharing this with you right now, to give you an idea of what it is you should be preparing for regarding this global conflict scenario. Now, of course, before we get into it, I want to mention that Midway USA is the biggest supporter of the channel. Thanks to them, I can get out here, get information to you, and give you good ideas about gear and equipment that they currently have available. So a big thanks to Midway USA and for helping me get through difficult weeks where I can't get as much information out as I would usually like to. So big thanks to them. Now, first off, I feel like we're being punished because this war has had the gas pedal pushed to the floor, and they are moving it forward regardless of what the people wanted to see happen. So that's something you should definitely be keeping in mind, because one major event could happen at any moment for all we know at this point in time. It only takes that one major event to move things into a very dangerous territory. Right now, the U.S. is sending another aid package to Ukraine, a total of $725 million. And that's including landmines, which are going to be used on the front line, which have the propensity to take out Russian and North Korean troops. So keep in mind, this global scenario is indeed global. It's starting to affect countries that used to have nothing to do with what's going on over there. Now, we also had a high-profile Russian elitist, Konstantin Malefiev, come out and suggest that Russia should create a radiation zone in between Russia and certain parts of Ukraine, and that the war would be over then because there would be no reason to be there anymore. No one would be able to inhabit it, and it would, well, no longer need to be fought over. And these are the concepts and ideas that people in their elite ruling class that have connections with people like Vladimir Putin are actually suggesting. So nuclear war is no longer a faux pas. It's no longer something that people are concerned about. In fact, they're advising it to be used in certain ways that are strategic rather than just being all-out annihilation, like creating a radiation zone. I mean, this is how quickly things have ramped up in just the last month, right? And here we are. So we also have a rather interesting development. South Korea decided to declare martial law. The president of South Korea, President Yoon, came out in the middle of the night and declared martial law because of, well, enemy factions within their political class, as claimed by the current president, saying that pro-North Korean political enemies are trying to overthrow the government, basically. And because of that, it's time to declare martial law. And one of the reasons why I brought that up isn't necessarily because I'm concerned about dealing with South Korea's martial law. I'm not there. But there are a couple things to keep in mind. One, North Korea is currently actively engaged in warfare with Western forces. Number two, South Korea is home to almost 30,000 U.S. troops, I believe. So there's a lot of American soldiers there that are currently in a country that's under a state of martial law. And three, South Korea is a democracy, and they decided that because a different ideology within their government was no longer agreeable and trying to change the way things work in the government, to declare martial law. Now look, they might have good reasons to be doing what they're doing, and they might have some verifiable truth about the fact that it's maybe being instigated by North Korea. But regardless, it just goes to show that one of our closest allies is in a scenario right now where, because they don't like what people in their own government are doing, martial law was declared. And so you should always consider martial law as being something that the elites will leverage against whoever they need to based on circumstance, right? This is all happening right now, by the way. Like, there's a lot is going on. That's why I'm worried about what's happening right now, because they have the gas pedal to the floor. They're pushing it, and it only takes that one spark, right? And we also have Syria. And Syrian rebels overtook Aleppo. And the thing is that, yeah, it's Syria. It's been at war forever, right? But a lot of problems there. But the issue is that right now, based on the current global environment, Syria is a hotbed for this conflict, especially based on proxies. And if you want to just break it down in the layman's terms, the rebel forces in Syria, the anti-government forces, are backed by the West and have U.S. relationships, basically, right? relationships with the U.S., which means they have relationships with Israel and everybody else. And the government in Syria, ran by Assad, is backed by Russia and Iran. And just out of nowhere, this gigantic revolution that's been hiding for however many years now just decided to show up once again and take over an entire city. I'm sure without any Western influence and for any particular reason, right? So, without having to talk about every individual detail of each story that I just brought up to you, the fact that these stories exist right now here in this current day, and I'm talking about like this is all stuff from like the last 24 to 48 hours. It's very clear they're pushing things as hard as they possibly can to get something to happen. But they have to get something to happen that doesn't necessarily directly correlate to them and create liability for them. So they're just trying to make sure the bad guys do something in order to justify whatever actions they have to take thereafter. And don't forget, ever since Ukraine's been invaded by Russia, I mean, they've been under martial law as well, similarly to what we're seeing maybe in South Korea right now. And guess what happened since they've been in a martial law scenario? Well, they've suspended elections. They've suspended a lot of government functions because, it's for the security of the nation and they just have to do it. So I'm not trying to insinuate anything like that's going to happen here. But what I'm trying to tell you is that you shouldn't be caught off guard or surprised by any strange events suddenly occurring in the middle of the night based on national security. And the way things are going right now, and the nation doesn't feel very secure. So I just want you to be vigilant. I want you to continue preparing. And while we have this time, which those who don't want the average person to succeed, they're the ones working against us right now in overtime because they're worried about this transition of power occurring. It's very clear. And regardless of how you feel about that transition of power, you're affected regardless. Like, it doesn't matter. It doesn't matter who you voted for. You're in the USA or you're part of the West. So here you are, you're going to be punished, right? That's all there is to it. So use this time wisely and understand that they're going full speed ahead. What is it you're doing? And is now a good time to get complacent? I would say probably not. In fact, you should be trying to use this time to get as far ahead as you can while also dealing with the fact that we're in the holiday season and that family has to come first to be prioritized, and people have these obligations that they need to fulfill when it comes to celebrating our families. So it is hard. It's difficult. And there's just been a lot. But right now is definitely not the time to get too comfortable. And I'm trying my best not to get comfortable. And even though I've definitely been under the weather and been struggling, I am just going to keep making it happen because they feel like they're running out of time. And in my opinion, that means we might be too. And let's just hope we get to the other side of this and nothing occurs. And we can look back on this and say, well, they tried, but they just failed. And that's what I hope for, and that's probably what you hope for too. Let me know your thoughts in the comments below. I mean, this is a lot happening fast. And I can't look at it any other way at this point in time. They're punishing us.